Welcome to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Today we'll be talking to a number of people about topics of interest and importance to Michiganders just like you. Let's begin with what's making headlines today on our local news page on civiccentertv.com. Our first story comes from Todd Spangler and Arpon Lobo at the Detroit Free Press. Yesterday, just about the time that we were wrapping up on this program, Senator Debbie Stabenow announced that her ongoing term in the U.S. Senate will be her final, and she will not seek re-election in 2024. The 72-year-old senator from Lansing has served Michigan as one of its two senators for the entire century thus far, beginning her first term in 2000. In a statement announcing the end of her service in the U.S. Senate, Senator Stabenow said, quote, "Inspired by a new generation of leaders, I have decided to pass the torch in the U.S. Senate. I'm announcing today that I will not seek re-election and will leave the U.S. Senate at the end of my term on January 3rd, 2025, and closed quote. Now the questions begin to circulate as we approach the major political season surrounding 2024. Who's up next? Names already are being thrown around into the fold of speculation in the Democratic Party, including Representatives Haley Stevens and Alyssa Slotkin, as well as Representative Debbie Dingell, and even Governor Gretchen Whitmer fielding questions about her prospects for the job, shooting them down, of course, adamant that she has no plans to exit the governor's office before the expiration of her second and final term as Michigan's governor. As for the Republicans, names in the rumor mill at this time include former Michigan Secretary of State and U.S. Representative Candace Miller, former U.S. Representative from the west side of the state, Peter Meyer, and former Whitmer gubernatorial challenger just this past year, Tudor Dixon. Certainly, it's going to be a big one for 2024, one to one be keeping an eye out for here in Michigan, as the rest of the union focuses primarily on the presidential election. Now, even more interest certainly will be put in Michigan's politics in the big year that will be 2024, with the senatorial position now up for grabs. Also making headlines today on civiccentertv.com's local news page from Mark Hicks at the Detroit News. The car allegedly involved in the hit and run in Oakland Township on New Year's Day has been found. The BMW Series 3 was found not far from the crash site where a 22-year-old Michigan State student was killed. In a statement, Sheriff Michael Bouchard gave kudos to a local citizen who presented a tip that led to the finding of this vehicle, saying, quote, "I knew the community would do everything that they could to help us locate the driver involved in this tragic death. We greatly appreciate when people step up, and I'm optimistic that we are headed down the right path," and closed quote. Authorities said a person of interest was also identified from this tip and the location of the vehicle, although no arrests have yet been made at this time in relation to the incident. Finally, making headlines today on civiccentertv.com's local news page from Aaron McMahon at MLive, after making a, let's call it a commitment that he, head coach Jim Harbaugh, will be remaining at the University of Michigan in 2023. Some unfortunate news coming down the docket for University of Michigan football fans as of late Thursday, when the program and Coach Harbaugh were announced to be under investigation by the NCAA for multiple rules violations that could lead to quote unquote serious penalties, according to reports from The Athletic and ESPN. The issue stemmed from incidences of unpermitted contact with recruits during the pandemic in 2021 and what is known as a recruiting dead period, where no contact should be made between program officials, including coaches and recruits, even those committed to the university. The University of Michigan self-reported these violations to the NCAA, classified as level 3 violations, stating, according to Yahoo Sports, that coaches met both in person with recruits and watched player workouts over Zoom or other remote video feeds. Additional violations include use of a defensive analyst, in this case Ryan Osborne, who has now departed the program and is with Jim Harbaugh's brother, John Harbaugh, the head coach of the NFL's Baltimore Ravens, for on-field coaching duties that were not permitted for a defensive analyst. Despite these being quite minute in nature, the penalties could be quite impactful on the program going forward, including a potential multi-game suspension for head coach Jim Harbaugh pending the NCAA's investigation and a decision on any discipline. There are plenty of rumors surrounding Harbaugh's future at the University of Michigan, again this offseason, following last weekend's loss to TCU in the college football playoff semifinal, with Harbaugh's name already linked to head coaching openings in the National Football League with the Denver Broncos and the Carolina Panthers, both of which have been in contact, according to reports, with Harbaugh and his camp. How these violations could impact Harbaugh's future at the University of Michigan, who knows? I mean, some speculation from this article in particular has been that might be playing into why that commitment to be coaching the University of Michigan in 2023 by Jim Harbaugh was maybe a little bit more of a non-committal commitment than it was last year, when it was much more adamant when he did come out and say he will be at the University of Michigan in 2022. But these violations, if you're looking at the NCAA and you're looking at the violations that have been made in a similar nature, particularly in recruiting by colleges in the past, it's interesting to me that this could potentially have such severe consequences versus other major issues, such as the University of Kansas basketball program, their head coach, Bill Self, which in comparison to what could be from this particular set of violations, really a slap on the wrist. They got to keep their championship banners. They got to keep, they didn't have to vacate wins. And that's a much more severe situation on paper than even this one seems to be from these initial reports from various media outlets such as ESPN and The Athletic and Yahoo Sports, as far as what's happened at the University of Michigan. Should they have had contact with players during the dead period? No school should. Does that mean that the University of Michigan acted out of turn as opposed to what their counterparts in the Big Ten and the NCAA do and in other sports across the NCAA? No, there are plenty of schools that do this all the time, get away with it, don't self-report or do self-report or get reported and frankly get away with a slap on the wrist. Like I mentioned, the University of Kansas, the University of Tennessee, also with basketball violations, and plenty of other schools that have had similar issues or even more severe issues than the University of Michigan. So if you're asking for my opinion, Jim Harbaugh shouldn't be suspended for this. They self-reported. They gave themselves some own, they imposed their own penalties after self-reporting, making so that they were not going to be allowed to contact those recruits within their own program. Their coaches were barred from contacting those recruits for 2 weeks following the dead period, as is marked in this article from Aaron McMahon of MLive. So this is a pretty cut and dry issue. I would say at this point, it's a closed book. Maybe Harbaugh gets suspended. Maybe there's a fine, but whether or not this impacts Harbaugh staying at the University of Michigan, I don't think so. I think that all depends on what he has offered from these head coaching positions that are allegedly showing interest in him at the NFL level. Last year, it seemed like he was very close to getting the head coaching job with the Minnesota Vikings before that ultimately did not go his way. There's also rumors that tied him to the Carolina Panthers last year, to the Miami Dolphins head coaching job. And that also did not go to Jim Harbaugh, of course, then returning to the University of Michigan. Whether or not that happens this time around, I think more depends on the completion of those coaching searches from both Denver, Carolina, and other positions that may open up in the NFL this offseason that could be of interest to Jim Harbaugh. And beyond that, what sort of power he will have as a head coach, but also within football personnel decisions at the NFL level. We've seen when he was in San Francisco, he had a lot of his own people in place. And, it seems to be that when Jim Harbaugh gets into a situation, whether it's at the college level or at the NFL level, eventually his way of operating does wear thin on people, especially organizations like NFL organizations that tend to hold the power at the higher levels in the front office and in the owners at the owner's desk, as opposed to with the head coach. That's a lot different than in college football, where the head coach is essentially the CEO of the program. And Jim Harbaugh, being a University of Michigan alum, idolizing the late Bo Schembechler, legendary head coach at the University of Michigan. And I think also a little bit of a hint in his non-committal commitment statement that he will return to the University of Michigan in 2023 was ending with that Bo Schembechler quote, "Those who stay will be champions." I find it hard to believe that by that, Harbaugh would say Big Ten champions qualifies well and enough, still chasing that elusive NCAA championship that the University of Michigan was so close to potentially being able to play for on this upcoming Monday, although they lost to TCU. So those hopes are over. I think he still wants to chase that, and so does the University of Michigan. They'll stand by Coach Harbaugh. More to come on this in the near future as these reports become official and more information comes out regarding the situation with the University of Michigan football program and these now just announced NCAA violations. We'll take a break on the Megacast. On the other side, after this short break, we'll talk to local lifestyle, fashion, and travel influencer Monifa Cook. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
The heart of winter. It beats inside you. It's that thing urging you outside when the forecast calls for snow. Some were born with it. For others, it was carved with care. But for all who take winter to heart, it's time. Feel the rhythm of the season and pursue your Pure in Pure, Michigan.
Wake up, Greater West Bloomfield. Start your mornings with The Splash and tune in for The Splash Live. Get acquainted with people, places, and activities that are live, local, and for you. First thing in the morning, weekdays at 9:30 a.m. on our Civic Center TV YouTube page, or watch us live at Civic Center TV or on Facebook. The Splash Live, Greater West Bloomfield's live update show.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can learn more on our website, civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Find all of our shows on demand, as well as each individual interview and links to each and every one of our partnering TV, radio, and streaming outlets in your local area. Joining us now on the program is someone who's turned her love for fashion, for travel, and more into a little bit of a big career change for her as well. Now a lifestyle, a fashion, and a travel influencer, Monifa Cook, joins us now on the Megacast. Monifa, thanks for being with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, appreciate having you on. So you are a lifestyle and a fashion content creator. You also are the founder of Cultured Creatives and thousands of followers on Instagram, thousands of followers on TikTok. You travel, you show off different fashion. Where did all of this begin?
Well, all of this started for me back in 2019. So I really got started with influencing when I was on Instagram and things like that, and it really just started to kick off. But I didn't see too many people that actually, look like me. So I wanted to start influencing and doing content creation because I just wanted to share more pieces of my life and also just inspire women to just do whatever they want, do whatever they love. And that's pretty much how it got started back then, 2019. And now I'm actually just coming back from an influencer trip this weekend, and it was great. So I'm still enjoying the lifestyle pretty much.
It seems like too with influencers, but with content creators, there's that moment where they decide to go into that and take that leap and start making more content. But then you're building that audience. It takes a while to do that, but there's always that moment where you realize what your thing is, what your style is, what you're going to be doing and presenting to this audience, and that moment where it all clicks. When was that for you?
Oh, wow. The moment it really all clicked, it honestly was some time into it because I really didn't know what I was doing. I just started posting. So the more I was getting myself comfortable with doing it and just getting the more experience, I was like, okay, I think I want to pretty much stick to this niche or do this type of content. So really it was just trying many different things, seeing what works, what doesn't, and just going from there. So once I found out what works for me and it was something that I genuinely, enjoyed doing, which was more so that lifestyle and fashion piece, I just stuck with it. And it's been doing very well for me. It's been working.
You mentioned earlier, Monifa, that one of the reasons that you really went into this was you didn't see content creators in this particular space that had similar life experiences to you, that looked like you. And so as you've gone through and had this experience and have grown your audience, across social media. How has that continued to influence A, the way you approach your work, but B, how you present that work too to this audience that's both in that community that you're looking to represent, but also in other communities that maybe don't have that full understanding of your life experiences?
Yes, good question, actually. So now I have noticed a big change from 2019 versus now, and really thanks to TikTok. I feel like there's plenty of creators and influencers that look like me now that's just like taking over. So I feel like there has been an increase in Black and Brown influencers everywhere. And now I feel like people are now understanding what being an influencer and content creation is all about. So whenever I'm on TikTok now, and I see new creators, and I'm just like, wow, I'm always looking to support other creators and just being able to still do what I love to do, and that's create content for fashion and lifestyle and travel. Like travel has become kind of a big thing this year for me. I've traveled a lot, so I've been able to, dip and dab in that a little bit, and that's just like a different realm itself because it just opens you up to a variety of experiences. But now I just feel like it's finally becoming a balance. Now it's all about making sure those Black and Brown creators just get the same opportunities as other counterparts in the space. So that's pretty much the thing now, just making sure that we're still getting what we deserve because a lot of, inspiration for different trends and stuff like that comes from, Black and Brown creators. So yeah.
We're joined by Monifa Cook on today's edition of the Megacast, a lifestyle and fashion and travel content creator and influencer as well. You can also find her on different social media, Instagram at Monifa Simone, as well as on TikTok at the Monifa Simone as well. That's MONIFAHSYMONE, Monifa Simone on Instagram, the Monifa Simone on TikTok as well. You mentioned that travel's become a big part of your content creation in more recent times. Of all the places you've traveled for your content creation, where have been some of your favorite locations or most interesting locations?
Oh, most interesting. I would definitely say this weekend I did go to Ohio to Sawmill Resort. That was my first time going to that resort. So it was actually very, very nice because they have their season of joy for Christmas and stuff going on. So that was a new experience for me because I never went anywhere like during the winter time, especially, living in Michigan and the Midwest. It's not that much to do when it gets cold. So going somewhere that actually was focused around winter activities and different events and things like that, it was perfect. I really enjoyed that. And if you're looking for something to do this winter, I would say definitely go to that place because it had everything that you were looking for. And also, I went to Cleveland as well, and I really had a great time. It was my first time in Cleveland, Ohio, because it's not too far from Michigan where we're at right now. So I really wasn't expecting anything of it. Like Ohio is not my first place. Like, oh, I want to travel, but it was a great experience. And I also enjoyed my time in Mexico and Dallas, Texas, earlier this year. But
sorry for interrupting there. I was going to say you can follow along with all the experiences on her social media on Instagram at Monifa Simone, on TikTok at the Monifa Simone, where you can also find a link to her link tree for more information, other projects, her YouTube channel, as well as Pinterest and other different links too that are helpful and provided by Monifa as well. She's of course a lifestyle and fashion and travel content creator, also is the founder of Cultured Creatives. So I want to give you a few minutes too to talk about Cultured Creatives and how you're kind of taking all these different experiences, all this different marketing and social media experience, and helping apply it to others also across our communities.
Mm-hmm. So Culture Creators was something that I started back in 2021. So just last year, I got my business up running off the ground with my co-founder, my partner, Shantae Wiggins. So really, we started Culture Creators because with the pandemic and everything happening like that, we noticed a lot of small businesses around the local Detroit metro area who were struggling with their social media and just like building that strong presence and following, and also establishing, a social media strategy to grow their accounts and reach larger audiences. So that's where we came into play. We were like, you know what? Let's support people. Let's use our skills and abilities and our degrees, and let's do this. So that's pretty much how Culture Creators got started. And now almost 2 years in business, it's just been a year and a half so far. So almost two. It's been a journey, and I'm so happy that we've been able to still, be running and helping clients. And right now we work with like influencers, streetwear brands, and like beauty, lifestyle. So just getting as much experience as we can possible to continue to help others and small businesses and really help them grow. Culture Creators it's been great. And I've been so blessed and, just happy to be able to still use my degree and also do what I love at the same time.
More information can be found. Get in contact with Monifa and the team at Cultured Creatives on the website, culturedcreatives.org. You can also find them on both Facebook and Instagram at Cultured Creatives, on Facebook at Cultured Creatives, and Instagram too, Creatives with 2 S's on both of those social media. And then you can find them at Cultured-Creatives on LinkedIn, also culturedcreatives.org. For more information. We're joined by Monifa Cook, an influencer and content creator, on today's edition of the Megacast. Doing what you love. You have thousands of followers across various social media and showing all these different passions of yours and experiences of yours. For those that are interested in content creating and would like to make that their career, their side hustle, or just an interest that they grow over time, what advice do you have for them as they're getting started or as they're already in process and maybe, feeling some of the aches and the pains that you get early on in that process?
My advice to new content creators and influencers would be to just keep going and staying consistent. Consistency is going to be key. And I know if you're thinking like, oh, brands are not seeing me, things like that, they are. Just keep going, keep posting, and just keep getting better. So it's really just staying consistent and committed, because it's really a journey and not just a destination. So for any new inspiring content creators, influencers out there, I'll just say, keep going. Right now, if you want any tiny bit of marketing advice, get started on TikTok. TikTok is the best avenue right now to really grow faster, and the algorithm works better on that platform. So use TikTok to the best of your ability and just have fun with it and be yourself. So that is my advice to new and inspiring content creators and life influencers.
You can find Monifa on TikTok at the Monifa Simone, as well as on Instagram at Monifa Simone as well. Monifa, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Always appreciate having people in our local area doing great things and starting from right here in Michigan. And Monifa certainly fits into that category. We'll take a break on the Megacast. On the other side, the economy in 2023, not in much better of a spot than it was at the end of 2022, just a couple weeks ago when we were last on the program. And joining us after the break, Michael Greiner from Oakland University will join us to talk about the state of our economy, who inflation is affecting particularly more than other groups, as well as struggles from Tesla and advances in electronic vehicle production. That's coming up next on the Megacast.
Wondering what to say to someone who's been sexually assaulted or abused?
I believe you. I'm so sorry this happened.
It's not your fault.
Confidential and anonymous help is available at the Michigan Sexual Assault Hotline. Connect with us 24/7. Call 855-VOICES-4 or text 1-866-238-1454 for help. Learn more at michigan.gov/voices4.
Ronnie started doing prescription pills at the age of 15, and by 19, he died. If your child is struggling with drug use, try not to be too proud to reach out for help. Don't be worried about what the neighbor will think or your family. Just get your child the help they need. Sometimes it's the hard road to take, but the hard road is nothing compared to living with the fact that your child is no longer with you.
There's hope and help at drugfree.org.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can learn more on our website at civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations across the Great Lakes state, including our co-flagship, My Michigan TV, and find all of our full shows and each individual interview on demand as well. civiccentertv.com/megacast is the place to go. Well, our economy is in an interesting spot still at this moment in time as we go into 2023. Hopeful, but there's a lot to work through still at this time in order to have a good result from 2023. And joining us once again as we begin this new year talking about the economy is Michael Greiner, assistant professor of management at Oakland University's School of Business Administration. Michael, thanks for being with us.
It's great to be back. Happy New Year, Tyler.
Happy New Year to you as well. Not so much of a Happy New Year for Tesla, currently having quite the struggle with on-demand worries and delivery issues as well. To take us into a little bit of details on what's going on with Tesla and why this particular company that has been having a strong last few years, it seems, is now in a position of a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting case to me. And frankly, the kind of thing I'll be talking about with my students going forward the next few years. You know, everybody's focused on Elon Musk and the whole Twitter acquisition and all the craziness going on around that. And we've talked about that here on this show. I think, though, there's a bigger story that's going on here, and one that is that you're seeing an industry in transition, where at one point, Tesla was what we call the first mover, and they had first mover advantage as a result of that. And they were really kind of for lack of a better way to put it, the only kid on the block when it came to EVs that had any kind of appeal to the general audience. And what's happening is we're starting to see this industry move to a more mass market appeal, where there is more growth in the sales of EVs, more competitors coming in. And as a result, Tesla's now starting to face more competition than it did initially. And kind of that initial shine that it had is wearing off. I mean, you have to remember, Tesla at one point was one of the most valuable companies in the world. It was more valuable than Toyota or General Motors, both companies that sell far, far more vehicles than Tesla ever has, and frankly, have also made much, much more profit than Tesla. Ironically, Tesla doesn't make a whole lot of profit per vehicle, and most of its profits actually are made by selling what are called carbon tax credits, where because of the fact that it saves so much money with its vehicles, it's able to sell the credits to other more polluting industries, and that's where it makes most of its money. But that being said, you can't deny the fact that Tesla has been a success story. I mean, they're selling hundreds of thousands of EVs, far more than any other single company out there. But that growth that they've been experiencing is definitely slowing down, and they're being kind of nipped at the heels by other competitors. Some of the strong competitors include Hyundai and their partner brand Kia, who've come out with a number of strong vehicles. And in the United States here, of course, you have Ford, who have moved into second place in terms of EV production, and GM, who really have prioritized EV production. Frankly, their top-selling EV right now, which is the Chevy Bolt, which was really one of the early vehicles to come out that was really fully an EV vehicle, has struggled over the past year because they had some problems with the batteries and you could see this would be a big issue. You know, they had to warn customers that the batteries were prone to catch on fire and that you shouldn't keep it in a garage as a result of it. That would be a pretty big disincentive for people to buy that vehicle. It seems, though, that GM has addressed that, and they're actually moving away from the technology that caused that problem in the first place. They've got a whole new battery technology. And as a result of that, the growth of their EV sales seems to be growing again. But now, the top 5 selling EVs in the United States, only 3 of them are Teslas. This list used to be completely dominated by Tesla. The other 2 being one from Ford, which is their Mustang, and the other from GM, being the Bolt. So it shows that there's a lot of competition here. Where there's a bigger issue, though, is in China, where Tesla isn't even the biggest seller of EVs at all anymore. There's another company, and you'll have to bear with me a second here. I think it's BET or something like that. I'm blanking out on that here for a second. And they've been competing very aggressively with Tesla with EVs that sell for less money and are manufactured in China, which there's definitely kind of a sense of, I guess you could say, national pride in China, where they like to buy locally manufactured vehicles. So as a result of that, you see that most of the EV growth in China right now is going to this other company, this local Chinese company. And there are other Chinese companies that are also trying to compete there, as well as some of the global competitors that Tesla has, including GM and Ford, but also Volkswagen, and who've been very aggressive in this area, and of course Hyundai, Kia, which we talked about earlier. The point of all this, though, is that right now, China is the world's largest car market, larger than the United States, and it's also growing much faster because there's still a lot of Chinese who either don't own a vehicle or only own one vehicle. The United States, though, you're talking about a much more mature market where people basically are buying new vehicles to replace old ones. So there's a lot more potential growth in China. And Tesla is very worried about the fact that it's kind of fallen behind these other competitors in China and is not keeping up with them. And to make matters even worse now, this Chinese company is starting to export vehicles to Europe, which is the world's second largest EV market after China. So it shows that Tesla is really facing some fundamental issues here. Now, everybody likes to look at, the craziness going on in Tesla, and Elon Musk is always entertaining, to be sure. And frankly, a lot of the market valuation for Tesla, it was driven by this good story that Elon Musk was able to tell. He was an interesting character. He had a good story to tell. But at the fundamentals, they were an early mover in this market. So they got that advantage, but that advantage does not last forever. And you can see it starting to whittle away as other competitors are coming into the market. Now, all of this is happening on top of a global slowdown in auto sales anyway. And particularly in the United States, I was just reading this morning, we've seen, I believe, an 8% drop in auto sales here from last year. So that's a very, very significant drop. That drop is due to a number of factors. They include production factors. They include some demand side factors with, the interest rates going up, so cars become less affordable. There are still some issues with the silicon chips for some of the companies, particularly Toyota. And in fact, one interesting development here is that GM has once again moved ahead of Toyota in terms of having the largest sales of any company here in the United States. So that's kind of an interesting development for those of us here in the Motor City. But the bottom line is auto sales here in the United States are going down. They're going down in China. Europe, of course, they're still struggling under what's becoming an increasingly severe recession as a result of the invasion of Ukraine. And so auto sales are going down there as well. And then on top of that, Tesla's facing more competition. And you can see all this coming together to really create a situation where Tesla isn't having the free reign in the EV market the way they used to. And suddenly they're dealing with a much more competitive environment, which is causing them to actually offer incentives for the first time for their vehicles, both in China and here in the United States to some customers. And that eats away then at their profit margins, which of course then is going to impact the stock market. So interesting to watch Tesla, where you're in an industry that's really transitioning right now. Is Elon Musk, who's been credited as being this wizard, going to be able to rescue it? Frankly, I think the fundamentals are going to be more important than any single individual. But that being said, the question is how fast Tesla is going to fall and how far. We've seen where industries have transitioned like this. I don't think there are too many people out there right now carrying a BlackBerry smartphone or a Palm smartphone for that matter, or for that matter, using Netscape Navigator as their browser on their computers. So you can see where companies that are first movers in the market sometimes disappear. On the other hand, we've seen where Apple has succeeded. So the question is, which side of this gap are we going to see Tesla fall on? That's what's going to be interesting to watch over the next couple of years.
Yeah, take a poll in your life of how many people are asking Jeeves questions nowadays. It's going to be a pretty low number. We're joined by Michael Greiner on today's edition of the Megacast from Oakland University School of Business and Administration. More information on Oakland University programs can be found at oakland.edu. And as we talk about the impact of this shift to electric vehicles in the automobile industry, how that's even affecting some of the first in line for that in the automobile industry, such as Tesla. You think about the competitors and their momentum now against the giant that was and still for the time being is Tesla. They're really putting a lot of investment into electric vehicles as the way of the future. The Wall Street Journal recently released an article that said as of November, about $33 billion had been pledged in the U.S. to go toward new auto factory investment for electric vehicles. And as we've had some complaints in the past from people on both sides of the aisle politically about the loss of these factory jobs and these factory opportunities, now we're seeing those maybe coming back as electric vehicles are really becoming the way of the future in the automobile industry.
Yeah, they sure are. And that's the thing is none of these manufacturers want to get left behind. Kind of the way, again, that Netscape Navigator or BlackBerry did in their industries. So they're trying to really invest for the future right now. And a lot of them are very aware of the fact that the economy seems to be slowing down a little bit. We could be dealing with a little bit of a hiccup. Auto sales are down. But as a great example of how important it is to invest in this industry is the one bright spot in the U.S. auto sales was that while we were dropping by about 8% in sales overall, the EV sales dramatically increased, almost doubling. So you're seeing a huge increase in EV sales. They went from, I think, about 3% of the market up to about 6% of the market right now. So although it's still a small slice of the auto market, it's the one that's growing. At a time that most of the rest of the market is declining. So, and that's only going to accelerate as some of these incentives come online that were included in the Inflation Reduction Act that Congress passed last year. As some of those come online, there's going to be even more incentive, not just to build EVs, but to build them here in the United States. Because one thing that's been talked about a little bit is the fact that the Inflation Reduction Act included some requirements that to benefit from these incentives, the vehicle that you buy has to be mostly built here in the United States. So buying something that's built in, say, China or Japan isn't going to be helpful. And so you're seeing a lot of investment here in the United States. And you mentioned the $33 billion figure. And just to give a little bit of context to that, that's in contrast to $9 billion in manufacturing facility construction just a few years ago in 2017. So it's a huge jump up, and it just shows that these companies are taking this as a very serious threat and a very serious opportunity at the same time that they need to be players in. One interesting side note about this, by the way, and this is again something of particular interest to those of us here in Michigan, is that a lot of these factories, the bulk of this investment, continues to be down in the South. Which is frustrating for many of us because, of course, much of the auto industry grew up here in the Midwest, and we'd like to see more of it happening here, and it still is. I mean, still a lot of the design and the leadership of it happens here, but much of the manufacturing, I think about 2/3 of the manufacturing, is being put down south. Why is that, you might ask? Well, the biggest issue, it looks like, is energy costs, and this is especially frustrating to those of us here in the Midwest for the fact that the reason that the energy costs in the South are so low is because of the fact that back during the Depression era, when we had the New Deal happening and there was a Tennessee Valley Authority, we built all this energy generating capacity down in the South that makes energy less expensive down in the South than it is here by a pretty substantial margin. We're talking 20 to 25% cheaper. As a result of that, auto manufacturers say, hey, we want to locate here where our costs are going to be lower, but yet a lot of the basis for that, the Tennessee Valley Authority, a lot of that was paid for by taxpayers here in Michigan and other Midwestern states. So really, I think that there's need for us to call on legislators to address some of this inequality here and to essentially give us some of the benefit that we've given to the South to encourage the factories to go there rather than locating here in the Midwest.
Well, Michael, just another couple minutes with you before we'll need to move on today. A little bit behind time here on the show. There's another interesting report from the Wall Street Journal about the way that inflation is continuing to impact communities across the U.S. and in some ways is showing that inflation is hurting more the middle class, necessarily having a bigger impact on the middle class than it is on the lower class or those in the upper classes economically here in the U.S. at least. How is that the case? Because you would think with higher costs of these goods from inflation, that would particularly impact those that are in some of the lower socioeconomic classes, or especially those at or below the poverty line, more than those in the middle class.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is an interesting study. Frankly, I didn't find it quite as surprising as the Wall Street Journal did, but still an interesting story because the issue is how fast wages are growing. Inflation's not a problem if your wages are growing up faster than the wages. It's a problem only if your wages aren't keeping up with inflation. Well, as it turns out, most people who are at the lower level of education, people who really, frankly, have lost out in some of the growth in wages over the past couple decades, really. Those people are the ones who have done the best job of keeping up with inflation, actually going with their wages increasing on average faster than inflation. On the other hand, middle class people, people who tend to be college graduates, we tend to be falling down relative to inflation. Our wages are not keeping up as much as inflation is increasing. I think the big issue there has to do with certain changes that you've seen in the workplace as a result of the COVID pandemic. You saw two things happen. Number one, you saw that people who are more well-educated, that our jobs could be frequently done at home and done remotely. And there's definitely an interest among people who are more well-educated to be able to take advantage of that and to be able to work at your computer and work via Zoom and that type of thing. As a result of that, people are willing to sacrifice certain amount of their wages so they're able to work at home. And there is actually a challenge there where wages are being held down a little bit because people would rather work at home. And I can certainly understand that myself. By the same token, a lot of the people who are in the non-college educated jobs, which tend to be in say, manufacturing or in service industries, they tend to be jobs where you have to be there to do the job. There is no remote way that you can be a remote worker and say work at a fast food restaurant or be a waiter or work in a manufacturing facility. Excuse me. That just isn't going to happen. So as a result, because of the fact now that there's this incredible demand as the economy has bounced back for service workers, they've been able to demand higher wages, which has increased the amount of money they're earning. At the same time that people in the middle class have seen it going down, as on average, more of us are choosing to stay at home and in exchange accept lower wages. So kind of an interesting development there.
Well, Michael, we appreciate you joining us and giving us some more insight on where we're going, particularly in the automotive industry with electric vehicles, how that's currently impacting the industry and having some widespread effects too in the factory manufacturing as well. And then, of course, how inflation continues to impact our economy. We'll have plenty of more discussions coming up with Michael in 2023. Thank you, as always, for joining us.
Sounds great. Take care, Tyler. Have a great week.
You as well. More information on Oakland University programs can be found at oakland.edu. We'll take a break. On the other side, we'll talk to one of over 300 charities and nonprofits supported on the Share Detroit platform. This is the Megacast.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream lives on with United We Walk, an event that celebrates Dr. King Jr.'s birthday by embracing unity, diversity, and acceptance. Volunteer, participate, or donate to bolster your community and engage with your fellow citizens. For more information, scan the QR code on screen or go to unitedwewalk.org. Show your support Sunday, January 15th, 2023 from 1 to 3 p.m. at the new West Bloomfield Middle School.
I'm feeling good. Let's savor these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can find more information and keep up to date with all of our shows on demand at civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Joining us now on the program is one of over 320 charities and nonprofits supported on the Share Detroit platform. Ashley Wickett-Lane is a member at large of the Birmingham Village Players, celebrating their 100th season this year, and joins us now on the Megacast. Ashley, thanks for being with us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you on. So as I mentioned, ongoing now is the 100th season at the Birmingham Village Players in 2023. Tell us about the Birmingham Village Players and how this nonprofit not only is supporting the arts here in the Oakland County area, but even more in our local community.
Sure. So Village Players, as you've mentioned, we're coming into our 100th season in 2023, opened in 1923. And, Village Players has really become a staple in the community theater community in Michigan. It's one of I believe it's the third oldest community theater in the state of Michigan, and then one of the oldest, 50 oldest in the entire United States. So we definitely have a great reputation. We've been around for a minute. And what I really love about Village Players is it's not just about putting on shows, right? It's about involving the community, getting people of all ages. We have a youth theater. We have kids who are in high school working with us. We have adults, obviously. A lot of members have been around for 30, 40 years. It's been a staple in their households. So what's really important to us as the theater, and as I'm on the board as a board member, is to make sure we're reaching out across all avenues, across all ages, to bring live theater to Detroit, to Michigan.
And just what sort of impact does this live theater and these opportunities have on the Birmingham area, but also on the wider community of people that are participating in one of their local community theater organizations like yours?
Sure. I mean, the arts, right, are so fruitful for so many reasons. If you come as a patron and you watch a show, or you get involved in somehow, we want people to get involved in every aspect: building sets, doing marketing, props, costumes. Perhaps you're acting up on stage. Perhaps you're a musician in one of our musicals. There's so many different ways you can get involved depending on what your background is or where your interests lie. Or you can just come and see our shows. Fellowship, friendship. You meet people. It can be a fun, date night. It can be a fun friends gathering. If you say, we're going to go to every opening night at the Village Players, or every third Sunday. We also try to do a lot of different activities, like we do talkbacks. So we'll have the actors, the directors, the designers talk with the audience after certain performances, give them a history of the show, give them an inside look at the process. We offer some different workshops and things like that if you want to learn more about different aspects of theater. So there's really a ton of opportunities. And I think, like with any artistic endeavor, it just enriches your life in so many ways. And it can not only introduce you to more people, but you can just, if you're getting up on stage for the first time, it's a great way to get over a fear of public speaking. Or, we always teach our youth theater. It's about teamwork. It's about ensemble building. There's so many life lessons you can take from theater that don't just have to do with performing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and let's talk more about those programs and those opportunities, Ashley, because
Sure.
there are multiple different groups within the Birmingham Village Players that allow people to explore their creativity, to explore the arts in a variety of ways that, as you said,
Sure.
that don't necessarily have to involve them being on the stage performing in front of an audience.
For sure, for sure. So, like I mentioned, we are always looking for volunteers to help with there's a vast array of areas, right? So when it comes to putting on a production, I think sometimes people don't realize how much truly goes into it. But from day one, I mean, even before rehearsals start, you have marketing people, publicity, you have building a set, creating and pulling costumes, thinking about hair and makeup, props, ticket sales, box office, ushering, even if you're just, you just want to come see the show and help out, but you don't have as much time, you can come one night and be an usher, help seat people in the theater, and then you get to watch the show. So there's a vast array of ways you can get involved besides performing. You can also be a director if you're interested in sort of being on the other end of it and sitting on the other side. So we are always looking for volunteers in all of those areas. And, it truly, we're called village players, and not to be too corny, but it does take a village. It truly does to put on a production. So the more people, the more hands on deck we can get in all of those different areas, the better off we are and the better off the production is. So we really encourage anyone who might be interested in getting involved. And like I said, even if you're not interested in being on stage, there are so many aspects where you can get involved and help out and see sort of all the different things that it takes to put on a show.
You can learn more information about the Birmingham Village Players in a couple of different places on the web on sharedetroit.org. Click on their Find a Nonprofit section, a link on the front of their website, and just search Birmingham Village Players, or go to their website directly, birminghamvillageplayers.com, birminghamvillageplayers.com. You can also call them 248-644-2075, 248-644-2075. For more information about both upcoming shows and ways you can participate with the Birmingham Village Players. Joining us on the Megacast is Ashley Wickett-Lane, member at large of the Birmingham Village Players, with us on today's program. And so for you, what got you involved with the Birmingham Village Players? And even beyond that, Ashley, what keeps you involved with this organization as the years go on?
Sure. So I actually, I grew up here in Birmingham, in Michigan, and then I actually studied theater. I have my BFA in acting and my master's in acting. So I actually left for about 10 years, got my degrees in acting, lived in New York, lived in Chicago, acted professionally for about 10 years. And then when my husband and I started, we had our daughter, we moved back to Michigan. We moved back to the suburbs to kind of have a quote unquote normal life, right? The life of a professional actor is anything but normal. So when I moved back, I was very interested in getting involved with community theaters because it's my training, it's my passion, it's what I've spent my whole life doing. And the Birmingham Village Players was the first place that I looked up, just because, if I'm being honest, it was vicinity, it was the closest to me at the time. So I got involved, maybe 9 months after we had moved back, and just found that they were so welcoming. Everybody there has just been so kind, so excited to have both myself and my husband, Patrick. We both got involved right away. And so that was sort of my first experience. This was in 2017. Was just this really welcoming community. And it was really exciting to have an outlet for what I love to do right here in my home, in my city where I grew up. And since then, I've just gotten more and more involved because I really enjoyed the experience so much. So now I actually sit on the artistic board at the Village Players. So I am part of the board that helps make a lot of decisions, including what shows we're going to do each season, different policies, different procedures, help with casting, all those things that sort of go into running a community theater. And I'd say what keeps me coming back is the people, definitely. I mean, yes, my love of theater, that's what got me involved, but there's a lot of theaters where maybe the group isn't something you want to be a part of. That's not what this is. This is a really, really wonderful group of people who care a lot about not only putting on beautiful shows, but they care about the community and the impact that we can have on people and their lives and enriching their lives through theater. So that's definitely what keeps me coming back, is just this really wonderful group of people that have become friends and colleagues in a way on the board, and hoping that we can make a difference.
Ashley, we got about 30 seconds left before we'll need to say goodbye. Anything else you'd like to say that we haven't talked about yet that you'd like to mention with the Birmingham Village Players?
Yes, next Friday, January 13th, we open Harold and Maude, the musical. So if you are interested in seeing a lovely musical, it's 90 minutes, no intermission, call the theater or go to our website, birminghamvillageplayers.com, get some tickets. We'd love to see you there.
Well, Ashley, we appreciate you joining us and telling us more about this nonprofit organization right here in our local area.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. Their 100th season is underway at the Birmingham Village Players. You can learn more information and how you can get involved both on stage and behind the scenes at birminghamvillageplayers.com or sharedetroit.org. That will do it for this week's editions of the Megacast. As always, you can keep up to date with all of our partnering TV, radio, and streaming outlets throughout Oakland County and across the state of Michigan, as well as find our full shows and each individual interview segment on demand on civiccentertv.com/megacast. Big thank you as well to our dedicated crew at the studio of My Michigan TV, Calvin Brown and Jared Clark at Master Control all this week, and will be there again for us next week. That does it for this week's editions of the Megacast. We'll be back soon with new episodes.